Hey guys, Jim here with another video for you. This is my 20 favorite war films that I own on Blu-ray. But before I begin, at the end of this video, if you like what you see, please consider giving me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe. But most importantly, please leave your comments below. Let me know how you feel about my picks. Let me know if you have any questions about any of these films, and let me know what your picks would be. Now, I want to start off by issuing a couple of caveats. Number one, I'm only including films that I have on Blu-ray. I am not including any films that I own on any other form of media or that I don't own. Number two, these are my favorite war films, not necessarily the best. These are ranked in the order of which I would want to watch them. It has nothing to do with quality, although I feel all these films are of the utmost quality. But I know as we go along, there's going to be some very controversial picks, but that's fine. That's what makes these lists so much fun. Number three, caveat, these are what I would consider traditional war films. I am not considering any kind of war-adjacent fantasy type film like Overlord, which has zombies in it during World War II, or The Last Samurai, which does feature themes from the Civil War and the war over in Japan between the samurai and the soldiers. I am focusing mainly on traditional American war films. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to go right down from 20 to 1. I'm not going to go into too much about plots or anything, but I will give reasons on some of these films on why they are where they are. So starting off with number 20, we're going to start with The Patriot. Has to do with the Revolutionary War here in America, starring Mel Gibson, Heath Ledger, Tom Wilkinson, Jason Isaacs. Great cast in this movie. Directed by Roland Emmerich. Again, I am not saying that this is one of the greatest war movies ever made. The main reason this is on this list is because this was the last film I saw with my father theatrically. So because of that, I will always hold this movie high in my heart. So that is why The Patriot is on this list. Number 20, Roland Emmerich's The Patriot. Number 19, The Hurt Locker. Directed by Catherine Bigelow. And starring Jeremy Renner, Anthony Mackie, Guy Pearce, David Morse, Ralph Fiennes, among others. This won the Academy Award for Best Picture that year. Great intense movie about the Gulf War. Great movie. Number 18, Dunkirk. World War II drama directed by Christopher Nolan and starring Tom Hardy, Kenneth Branagh, Barry Keoghan, and Cillian Murphy. I love this film. I heard from a lot of my friends over in the UK. Apparently, opinions are mixed on this film from the people that I've actually spoken to on the subject. I know some of you really do enjoy this film. I love it. I think it's a great movie. Okay, next we have World War II submarine drama, U-571. Starring Matthew McConaughey, Harvey Keitel, and the late great Bill Paxton. Directed by Jonathan Mostow. I really love this movie. This is a throwback to the old-fashioned World War II movies. The submarine movies of that era in particular, like Run Silent, Run Deep. Excellent movie. Lots of claustrophobia. Lots of intensity. This is a great film. Number 16, our first Vietnam film on the countdown, Hamburger Hill. Directed by John Irwin and starring an ensemble cast featuring Dylan McDermott, Steven Weber, and Don Cheadle. based on a true event. Very intense film. Very intense. I remember seeing this theatrically. It blew me away. I think this is one of the more underrated Vietnam movies from the 80s, it doesn't get as much love as it deserves. Great film. Number 16. We're back to the Gulf and with Lone Survivor. Directed by Peter Berg and starring Mark Wahlberg, Taylor Kitsch, Emile Hirsch, and Ben Foster. And Ben Foster, as always, is terrific in this film. Based on a true story, great film. Very intense, hard to watch. Excellent performances across the board. I really, really enjoyed Lone Survivor. Okay, moving right along. We're back to World War II. With the classic Patton, starring George C. Scott and Carl Malden. The screenplay on this was written by Francis Ford Coppola, of all people. This was right before he did The Godfather, of course. And directed by Franklin Schaffner. I'm sorry. Excellent, excellent film based on true events, of course. George C. Scott won Best Actor for his portrayal of General Patton. He famously refused to accept it. Patton it's a classic. Great, epic World War II film. Number 13. We're still in World War II with Wolfgang Petersen's masterpiece, Das Boot, starring Jürgen Prochnow. This was the first foreign language film I ever saw theatrically. This came out in 1981. I was 14 years old. And it was called The Boat here in America. Didn't know it was a German film until we started watching it and saw the subtitles. And at first, I was like, do I want to watch this? And 2.5 hours later, I was like, my God, am I glad I did. To me, this is still the greatest submarine film ever made. It's just a masterpiece. And it was the first film I ever saw, World War II wise, that portrayed the German soldiers as soldiers, not monsters. Because in America, for the most part, if you're seeing German soldiers in a period piece, it means they're Nazis. And these guys weren't Nazis. They were simply soldiers. This is a fantastic film. Next, we have Stanley Kubrick's classic Vietnam film, Full Metal Jacket, starring Matthew Modine, Arliss Howard, Vincent D'Onofrio, Adam Baldwin, and in an incredible performance, R. Lee Ermey as the drill instructor. This movie is iconic. It's like watching two films in one. It starts off as one thing and totally switches gears for the second half. Great, great film. Most people put this towards the top of their Stanley Kubrick's lists. Again, excellent, excellent film. Number 11. We're still in Vietnam. With Michael Cimino's The Deer Hunter. Starring Robert De Niro, Meryl Streep, John Cazale, and John Hurt. Or I'm sorry, not John Hurt. John Hurt. John Savage. Oh my God, I am really butchering this. John Savage. And in his Academy Award winning performance, Christopher Walken. What needs to be said about The Deer Hunter that hasn't been said? This movie is a brilliant classic film that has withstood the test of time. And it contains some of the best performances ever put on screen, especially from these two fellows right here. They are excellent, as is everyone else in this film. The Deer Hunter deserves all of the acclaim that it got, and it is. It's quite honestly a masterpiece. Okay, top 10. Spin these around. Number 10. 1917, directed by Sam Mendes. This is our World War I film that on our list. And this is an incredible, incredible technical achievement as well as just being an incredible film. You want to talk intensity? It doesn't get much more intense than this. Fantastic film. It really is. Number 9. Speak of intensity, and we're going to be getting a lot of intensity for here on out, is Black Hawk Down, directed by Ridley Scott. Again, with a true ensemble cast featuring Ewan McGregor, Tom Sizemore, William Fincher, Eric Banya, the list goes on and on. Sam Shepard. Incredible, intense, visceral experience. This is one of the most intense, memorable experiences I ever have watching a film theatrically. I came out of that theater feeling like I was in the battle with these guys. This is an incredible film. Number 8. Back to World War II with Mel Gibson's Hacksaw Ridge. Again, based on a true story, which if I didn't know that, I never would have believed it. Starring Andrew Garfield, Sam Worthington, Hugo Weaving, and Vince Vaughn. This is quite honestly, again, a masterpiece. This is, again, incredibly intense, but an incredibly moving story about the courage of the human spirit. What this man does in this film is truly something inspirational. Whether you are religious or not, this is truly a miracle, this story. It really is. If you've never seen Hacksaw Ridge, I cannot recommend it enough. Number 7. Back to Vietnam with Platoon. Directed by Oliver Stone, winner of Best Picture. This is my Shout Factory Steelbook. Starring Charlie Sheen, William Dafoe, Tom Berenger, Johnny Depp, Forrest Whitaker, Keith David. Again, ensemble cast. Everyone is terrific in this movie. John C. McGinley. I got to throw John C. McGinley a shout out. He's fantastic. I saw this movie theatrically right before I shipped off the boot camp. Again, before anybody says thank you for your service, don't. I blew out my knee in basic. I never finished. But I do have nothing but respect for all of our brothers and sisters in uniform around the world. And Platoon, again, very intense. One of those films that once you see it, you can't forget it. Incredible, incredible film. But my favorite Vietnam film, and this is going to be one of those shock ones, is The Boys in Company C. Not only is it my favorite Vietnam film, it's without a doubt the most underrated and forgotten film on this list. This came out in 1978, directed by Sidney J. Furie, starring Stan Shaw, Andrew Stevens, and there he is. R. Lee Ermey, a decade before Full Metal Jacket. And this movie is very similar to Full Metal Jacket, both in structure and, of course, the R. Lee Ermey connection. If I had to describe this film, I would say it's a combination of Full Metal Jacket and MASH. And by MASH, I mean the original 1970 film with Donald Sutherland. This movie is a Vietnam film that is mainly comedic in tone, but it is very intense in scenes, and the ending is absolutely heartbreaking. I love this film. I cannot stress enough. Please seek this movie out and check it out. We are getting down to it now. Number 6. Back to World War II with The Bridge on the River Kwai, directed by David Lean and starring Alec Guinness, William Holden, and Jack Hawkins. Incredible film. One of those films that my father introduced me to as a child, and I have loved it ever since. As much as I love Alec Guinness in Star Wars, as Obi-Wan, of course, this is without a doubt his greatest performance. He is so good in this movie, as is Jack Hawkins and William Holden. Again, one of those movies, it's a classic, but it doesn't get talked about enough. Fantastic film. Okay, we are down to the top 5, and here's a spoiler. They are all World War II films. First, from this double feature, can you guess which one it is? I bet you can. The Dirty Dozen. Starring an incredible cast of Lee Marvin, Charles Bronson, Ernest Borgnine, Jim Brown, Donald Sutherland, George Kennedy. It goes on and on. Telly Savalas. Telly Savalas is so good in this movie. The Dirty Dozen is a classic for a reason. It's one of those movies that I hope never gets remade. It's just so goddamn good. I love this film so much. Number 3. Samuel Fuller's The Big Red One, also starring Lee Marvin, with Mark Hamill and Robert Carradine, Kelly Ward. Great movie, great cast. This is based on the events of Sam Fuller, his experiences in the war. I saw this theatrically at the drive-in, of all places, in 1980 with my father and both my parents. I wanted to see it because of Mark Hamill. My dad wanted to see it because of Lee Marvin, and we both left completely happy. This is Mark Hamill's best performance, period. He is fantastic in this movie, as is the rest of the cast. This Blu-ray has both versions of the movie, the theatrical and the reconstruction. However, the reconstruction is just in standard definition, not high def. However, no matter what version you're watching, The Big Red One is an incredible film. Number 2, The Great Escape. Directed by John Sturges, and again, with one of the greatest casts of all time, highlighted by Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson, James Coburn, James Garner, and Richard Attenborough. Again, based on a true event, an incredible, incredible film that my father, again, showed me when I was a kid. I've loved it ever since. Again, I'm amazed that they have never remade this movie. I kind of hope they never do. Iconic score, iconic movie. Great Escape. In one word, it's great. But number 1 is Saving Private Ryan. Directed by Steven Spielberg and starring Tom Hanks, Matt Damon, Edward Burns, Tom Sizemore, Vin Diesel, Giovanni Ribisi. This movie's great. This was one of the last movies that I saw that shook me to my core, theatrically. I literally sat there weeping at the end of this movie. It is what I feel, outside of Jaws, I think it's Spielberg's best movie. It's just an incredible, again, technical achievement. Great performances across the board. The opening scene of Normandy, D-Day, is one of the most visceral things I've ever seen. I love this movie. I think that it's gotten a little bit of hate recently. I don't know why. But again, to me, Saving Private Ryan is a masterpiece. So to recap our list, number 1 is Saving Private Ryan. Number 2 is The Great Escape. Number 3 is The Big Red One. Number 4 is The Dirty Dozen. Number 5 is The Bridge on the River Kwai. Number 6 is The Boys in Company C. Number 7 is Platoon. Number 8 is Hacksaw Ridge. Number 9 is Black Hawk Down. Number 10 is 1917. Number 11 is The Deer Hunter. 12 is Full Metal Jacket. 13 is Das Boot. 14 is Patton. 15 is Lone Survivor. 16 is Hamburger Hill. 17 is U-571. 18 is Dunkirk, 19 is The Hurt Locker, and 20 is The Patriot. So I hope you enjoyed this list. I hope you enjoyed these picks. If you did, please, again, give me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe, but most importantly, again, leave those comments, whether they're positive or negative. I cannot wait to hear from you. And we'll be seeing you on the next one. Have a great day, everyone.